January 5th, 2023. If we could have the newest member of our executive team lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hand over your heart, ready to win.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Andrew. May we have the roll call, please?
Director Huffer.
Yes.
Director Lang.
Here.
Director Cussworth.
Yes.
Director Nichols.
Yes.
Director Buss.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Item 3 on the agenda, special presentations. I don't believe we have any tonight.
We do not.
Thank you. Items for the public. These would be anybody who is not speaking on a specific agenda item. And the cards that I have also be related to agenda item 7. So I will hold on to those until we reach there. Unless there are no more cards that we've gotten. Okay. Item 5, approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion for that.
So move.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second, Director Lang and Director Cussworth. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Carries unanimously. Item 6, consent calendar. The 3 items: approval of the minutes from December 15th, approval of warrants, and should we handle 6C separately since it's a resolution?
We can adopt a resolution with a single consent calendar.
Okay, so then item C is resolution determining the need for more than 5 meetings per month. Can we get there's nothing that you need to present on this, Jim?
No.
Okay. If I could get a motion to take action on this.
So moved.
Thank you.
Consent calendar. Second.
Are there any questions or discussion on either of those, any of those 3 items? If not, all in favor of consent calendar items A, B, and C?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item 7, deferred matters. This will be, well, we're going to call the public hearing to order. Love getting to use that. And
Power.
yeah, it is. So I will start with our general manager, Mr. Friedel.
Yes, thank you, Chair Huffer and members of the board. We are in our 4th out of 5 planned meetings to review the maps to transition from an at-large election system to by division. I don't know if Melissa, if you have anything for before we kick it over to Dr. Levitt.
Nope.
So Dr. Levitt, you're here for the good of the order yet again. We'd love to have your presentation and then help guide us into looking at these maps.
There we go. I think the microphone's on now. Just pulling the presentation up right now. But as we do that, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Dr. Justin Levitt.
Get closer to the mic, please.
Okay. My name is Dr. Justin Levitt with National Demographics. It's a pleasure to be back here again. And this is our 4th meeting here to discuss the different, to discuss the transition to bi-division elections. It's our 2nd presentation discussing the draft maps themselves.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's awesome.
So let's just go to, let's just go to the next. Okay, there we go. So thank you for attending tonight's meeting, and I look forward to hearing our conversation as we discuss the different map options. Just to kind of give you an overview of our time frame, we started this discussion back in November. We had our first 2 hearings before any maps were drawn in November and on December 1st. Before Christmas in December, we presented our first round of draft maps, including 6 map options. This is our next hearing to kind of, again, look at the maps again, see if we like maps, don't like maps, make changes to maps, and ultimately with the idea that on the 19th would be our first opportunity for the board to select a draft map for the next decade or so. Just as a general point, the map will have to be revisited in 2030 after we get the results of the 2030 census. Although, as the school district found out, they did not have to make any boundary changes because their lines were still population balanced and still met all the requirements. So sometimes this review can be a little more formal, just going through the motions. Sometimes it does mean substantial changes. It just depends on population growth over the next decade. It's also an opportunity, I'll mention. You don't have to keep the lines if they're current in population, even if they're in population balanced in 2031. Now, the rules, what we talked about earlier is the criteria, the rules we use for drawing district boundaries or division boundaries. These are now kind of our criteria we should be thinking about in judging the maps. So all the maps we have to present tonight are population balanced. They meet the federal 10% maximum difference between the largest and smallest divisions. All of the maps we have to present tonight, we believe, meet the requirements of the Federal Voting Rights Act. That is, race was not the predominant factor in any of the maps that we're going to show you tonight. Race was not the predominant factor or the only factor, but it is one of the many factors that we have to consider as we look through the different map options. And certainly the Latino citizen voting age population, the non-white population is something we considered as we look through all the map options. In the second column, the traditional districting principles are ideas that are principles or criteria that the courts have said we should be balancing and considering as we look through the process, such as communities of interest, keeping together neighborhoods or areas with shared characteristics, a shared need for representation, compactness, and contiguity, the idea that a district should be one solid piece with one exterior boundary, not have little bits and pieces all over the district as a whole. That it should follow visible man-made and natural boundaries, such as major roads or other natural dividing lines to make it easy for voters to understand which district they live in. It should also potentially respect voters' choices. The idea that it shouldn't be up to the stroke of a pen on a map whether or not board members continue, and that it should account for population growth that might happen in the next decade. Although, as we see, it may not be as concentrated in a specific part of the jurisdiction, as we saw with the school district boundary changes over the last decade. Now, all of these are points that I want to talk about as being in balance on this right-hand column, because it's up to the board, it's up to the community to decide the extent and degree to which any of these criteria should dominate in influence the selection of a draft map. And so we're going to be looking at each of the maps in turn as we go through looking at the different criteria and how they apply. In addition to the paper maps, and we have some paper map packets in the back, we also have an interactive web viewer that allows you to see the maps in more detail. It allows you to search for addresses, to zoom in and out. This is also a site that's being updated as we go through the process with new maps as they've come in. In addition to the original 6 maps, we do have some new maps that we'll talk about as we go through the presentation. But I just want to start by reviewing the 6 maps that we saw at our last meeting. Map 101 is the school district map without any changes to it. We received the request to draw in, see if it was possible to draw in the school district boundary map. And that's what this map is. It has a 3% population deviation. That's, again, the difference between the largest and smallest divisions. And on each of these maps, you'll see that we've posted a sequence of elections. This is required by law that we have a suggested sequence on the maps. This gives us the election years that each of the divisions would naturally come up on. We are required to maintain the current cycle, so the same number of divisions as positions we currently elect would be elected in that year. In addition to that, I'll say on each of the maps, I'll identify that Division 3 in green in each of these maps will be the highest Latino citizen voting age or eligible voter population. And just as a reminder, that's the population over 18 with US citizenship that the courts often refer to as the eligible voter count. That comes from the Census Bureau. It's based on self-identification and the American Community Survey. And it's what basically the courts require us to look at. And so you'll see that number in our demographic spreadsheets accompanying each of the maps as well. And in each of these maps, you'll see that it's area 3. Now, in map 102, which was the first of these consultant drawn maps, and NDC drew maps, and I'll identify that NDC drew maps 102 through 106. We did not draw 101, that was the school district's map. We looked at creating a freeway corridor focused Division 3. And so in this map, area 3 follows the freeway. And so each of these, I'd say area 3 is the highest Latino citizen voting age population. There is some difference, ranges from a high of about 24% to a low of about 16%. Now, I will explain with the citizen voting age population data, there is some margin of error because of that self-identification, because of the way the American Community Survey is structured. It's based on a sample of the population, and particularly if we know where community boundaries are and where it makes sense to put those division lines, we should do that rather than simply rely on the highest number for citizen voting age population. We also know that that number is probably an estimate for a specific year and will change over the next 10 years as well. Certainly, we saw some differences even between the old census data and the new census data because of changes in census counting, census methodology. Map 102, however, we've created some freeway-focused corridor divisions. Area 3, of course, follows the 101 freeway. Area 5 does as well to the south of that, uniting all the southern communities. And areas divisions 1 and 2 follow the 23 freeway northward, with a more north to south axis along those two divisions. Area 4 includes the western portion of the district. Maps 103 and 104 are both ways that we were looking at whether it was feasible to put each trustee into a separate or each director into a separate division. Now, what this means for each of these maps is that these become, in 103, more horizontal districts, cutting across horizontally through the western and eastern portions of the district, with 1, 2, and 3 being on the eastern portion and 4 and 5 being out west. Now, some of the odd, especially the large geography in Area 5, reflects the fact that some of the census blocks themselves, the smallest unit of geography that we use, called the census block, are very large out along the eastern and western ends of the district. And so we're limited in where we can actually put those lines. By and large, they follow major roads or other natural features or man-made features like pipelines or canyons. But they're not always exactly in the most logical place. And so map 104 has more of a corridor, central District 2, that goes up through the central part of the city of Thousand Oaks. Maps 105 and 106, similarly, were based around a district request to see about splitting the Conejo Creek Park between 3 separate division areas. So in each of these maps, the equestrian park is in Division 1, Conejo Creek Park North is in Division 2, and Conejo Creek Park South is in Division 3. But this one creates more of a Eastern District 2 or Division 2, and a Southern Division 5, using the freeway as a major dividing line between Area 5 and Area 2. In contrast, map 106 has more of a centrally focused Area 1. And Area 3 in this map doesn't come up quite so high on both sides of the freeway, but more so along the eastern portion of that division. These were the 6 maps that we just showed at the last public hearing. To this, after the meeting, we did receive several additional maps that I'm going to discuss tonight as well. Map 107 was submitted by a resident of the community. And I'm sure he'll be able to speak about this map tonight if he would like to. It has the lowest deviation at 1.3%. It does cross some roads in order to grab just one census block on the other side of the road. It also creates the highest Latino citizen voting age population at just over 24.5% in Division 3. NDC drew 106B to try to create a version of this map that we believe balances that criteria a little bit better. For example, following some of the major roads rather than jumping across to get one block. For example, between Division 2 and Division 3 at the north end, you'll see that it crosses the road in order to grab 2 census blocks. This map takes that back down to that road. This does result in a higher deviation of 5.6, and it does reduce that Latino percentage from 24.5 to 24.3%, which we believe is well within that margin that we were aiming for in this map. We did receive a map 108. However, it was withdrawn by the author as it was not population balanced. They requested that we not show that. However, it did result in the creation of a map 109, which was an attempt to fix the population balancing in that map and create a much more central Division 3. That's not just along the freeway, but specifically kind of more central at the intersection of the 101 and 23 freeways. Like the other maps, it creates a northern division and then uses that freeway boundary between Divisions 5 and 2. And this has a 6.2% deviation and a Latino citizen voting age population of about 21%. And so all of these we believe are well within the margins of error of each other in terms of that. And so what we'd like to do tonight is really focus in on maybe potentially narrowing down this pool of draft maps. What works, what doesn't work? Are there 2 to 3 focus maps that we can narrow this down to? And are there requests for revisions and changes that we can bring back next time to give you the map on the 19th that would work best for the next decade? And so during our conversation, I'm happy to zoom in on details or explain any details about any of the maps. But our goal is really to make sure we come back on the 19th with the best map for the district. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you very much. If we could leave that slide up for the time being, I would appreciate it. I believe what we'll do first is we'll get public comments and then hear from individual board members, ideally to, as suggested here, to be able to narrow the selections down to 2 or 3 focus maps, and or if there are any changes to the draft maps. I'm going to start with a couple of written public comments that we received in the last several days. The first is, and if Lisa happens to be watching, I apologize for pronouncing your name. I believe it's Lisa Diniakos, and Lisa states, I support 107B. She states this map is most fair and equitable divisions of our wonderful community. The second written public comment that we got was from Willie Luca, and Willie writes, hello CRPD directors, my name is Willie Luca, resident of Thousand Oaks, and a grateful patron of our parks and programs. I'm also executive director of Buen Vecino, which is translated Good Neighbor, a local grassroots nonprofit organization. Thanks for inviting public input regarding the maps that will define divisions for future CRPD Board of Director elections. After carefully studying all the draft maps, I am encouraging you to adopt map 107B. This map does the best job of drawing lines that respect neighborhoods, history, and geographical elements. Map 107B will be the best, best option to support the CRPD's goals to enrich the lives of all Conejo Valley residents by providing opportunities for our diverse population to engage in meaningful activities together and to explore our local parks, trails, and open space, and ensuring that every person who visits a CRPD facility feels a sense of belonging and has access to CRPD services. My secondary choice would be map 102. Thank you for considering my input, and thank you for serving our community. And we have several in-person speaker cards. I believe this is the order that they were submitted. We will ask you to please go to the podium, and depending on if you could please be sure to speak into the microphone so that we can all hear you well. First speaker will be Patricia Booker.
Hello, everyone. First of all, Director Bus, I want to thank you, congratulate you on your impressive win. And I am so proud of you, Chase and Ty, stepping up to make a difference in the community. Second, during the first districting meeting, I reached out to all the directors, and I want to thank Director Huffer and Director Cussworth for the only two to answer my email to respond to it. So I want to thank you for that. Third, I want to say as somebody that sits on the Ventura County ACLU board, race and ethnicity does matter when it comes to redistricting, and I'll tell you why. There's only 1% of Black people in the community. The highest percent are the Latino community, and we both deserve to be represented. But Chase and I are at all events, whether it's for the city or recreation and parks. The last event we were at was with the big park opening. The only director that came up to Chase and I was Director Cussworth and had a conversation with us. And that says a lot. This is what the problem is. You have a wonderful staff. The general manager, your staff is wonderful because when Chase had his Martin Luther King event in 2020, just before COVID, they were on it trying to help us find a proper place, and they didn't stop until they did. So your staff is wonderful. Your staff, you did that good. But you need to look within your hearts. If there's unconscious bias, deal with it. You cannot be at an event and only interact with the people that look like you, the people that are in your neighborhood, or the people that vote for you and donate for your campaign. You have to try to reach out to everybody. That's why this is why districting is on the board. And no matter what happens, you have to try to look in your hearts and do the right thing. And whatever happens, remember to reach out to all the voters in your constituents, not just the ones that look like you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Next speaker will be Chase Rashid.
Thank you to the board. I actually am the person who drew map 107. I did submit it to all the board members for transparency, and the staff. So 107B is the cleaner version of that. The tool that I used for drawing the map, it was a little bit difficult to balance the population because some of the blocks were a little bit different. So 107B is what I support. It follows some of the natural boundaries of the Conejo Valley roads and some of the more perceived boundaries that residents see, like Westlake Village, Newbury Park. It keeps the unincorporated areas intact. It keeps them united. It follows zip code boundaries as close as it can. And it does increase the Hispanic population in Division 3. And I really want to say how important it is to keep the regions of the Conejo Valley together. Because if you have lived here long enough, you know that Newbury Park has long had issues feeling like they did not have representation in city government. I think that they would be very appreciative of having a map that gives them their own division, doesn't combine it with Westlake. There's a couple of maps that do combine it with Westlake. So I would like to see a map that gives Newbury Park and Westlake very definitive boundaries. It respects those boundaries. As for Division 3, it should stay within the central part of the city, run along the 23 corridor. These are very easy boundaries to follow based on principles of fairness and community interests. And as I said before, it is a difficult process when you have directors putting within the same boundaries. But I think in terms of good governance, you have to sort of erase that part of the equation and draw the divisions that are best for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chase. The next speaker will be Marianne Zile. Sorry, Marianne. Because you even told me how to pronounce it.
I did, and as I like to say in public, it rhymes with style. My name is Marianne Van Zile. I live in the Westlake Village portion of Thousand Oaks. Triumph Community Park is right behind my back wall. That's my park. There are several things that I would like you to consider when you take a look at these maps. And I believe that the map that Chase drew meets all of these ideals. It meets the requirement that physical boundaries are considered. So there is a long unpopulated portion, very sparsely populated portion of Hidden Valley between Westlake Village and Newbury Park. You have people, you know, it has a 2-lane road that doesn't provide good, you know, it's not a great road to drive on. And so these two communities think of themselves as two distinct communities. A couple of the maps actually join the Wildwood portion of the city, kind of north of the park, with Newbury Park and Wildwood Park in the open space is a large physical barrier between those two divisions. And so I think that the maps that include that should be given a lower priority. When we take a look at our communities of interest, I do believe that we should provide some focus on a community of interest of the Hispanic population, Spanish-speaking population, and low-income population, which is concentrated along along the 101 freeway and a little bit up the 23, particularly on the west side and not the east side being Conejo Oaks, which are large homes, wealthy population. One other consideration that I would like you to keep in mind is that there is a community south of Hillcrest and south of Amgen that in some of the maps is divided in two. And this community is a very tight-knit community and it just happens to be divided by census block lines. And I believe that maps that keep that particular community together make the most sense. I believe the map that meets these ideals is map 107B. I do understand human nature. It is a map where 2 of the districts are currently vacant and 2 of the districts have 2 current sitting directors. And I hope that you would consider that map, even though it may not be in your own personal self-interest or your desire to give back to the community. I do believe that that map is the best in terms of creating divisions where communities of interest are together and natural boundaries are preserved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marianne. I have a card that wasn't specified which agenda item, but I'm assuming that Rosanna Guerra, you wish to speak on this item as well? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rosanna Guerra, and I've been a resident of Thousand Oaks since 1993. During that time, I've enjoyed the programming, parks, and community spirit that CRPD has created. It is a valuable cornerstone of our community, and we look forward to the 4th of July fireworks every year. Your organization has accepted the challenge of answering the call for more diversity and representation. I have attended each meeting either in person or by Zoom because as a resident, I believe communities of interest need to have equal representation in our community. In the previous meeting, I spoke before you about the importance of recognition of our Latino community. Thousand Oaks has changed since my family moved here 29 years ago, and I think it's important to recognize that. Embracing diversity strengthens our community by learning each other's struggles and amplifying our commonalities. Your task is to decide how best to forge that future by voting on a map that allows those voices to be heard. In taking a careful scrutiny of the maps, it is my belief that map 107B has those characteristics and allows for greater representation of our underserved community, as well as creating representation for Newbury Park. Newbury Park is oftentimes ignored, and that is reflected by the lack of older adult facility, teen center, and a park like Old Meadows that services children of disabilities. Older adults, teens, children with special needs have no recourse but to travel to Thousand Oaks. Please, as you review these maps, pay particular attention to map 107B, since they create the dynamic of representation needed for our community. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Rosanna. And did you say you had spoken earlier at a prior meeting? So I just wanted to make sure that we do have contact information for you. You didn't. If we already have that information, then we should be okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Rosanna. Okay. I don't have any other speaker cards for in person. We do have 2 individuals on Zoom who asked to speak on this item. The first one is Carol Shelton.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
There we go. Yes, now we hear.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Okay. Good evening. My name is Carol Shelton. I have lived in Thousand Oaks for the last 40 years. I live in Area 3. I'm here tonight to share my preferred maps that will be considered tonight. I'm the Vice President of Adelante Comunidad Conejo. I'm a professional supporting the IDD or Intellectual Developmental Disability community, and I am the parent of 2 boys with developmental disabilities. I am involved in my community. I am also Hispanic. Area 3 has 2 things in common: a recognized concentration of Hispanic Latino community members, and many folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities also live here. The Hispanic, Latino, and IDD community share many common barriers, obstacles to true inclusion, and do not receive the same outreach, are not planned for, and are not valued in their community. This is sad, but very true. It is important for our growing Latino Hispanic community to have the power to elect someone. Can you still hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
We just increased the screen size so we could see a little bit better.
Okay, sorry about that. Hispanic community have the power to elect someone living in their community. I know and have had confirmed by another professional working with the IDD community that many in this community are clustered in Area 3. I have studied the maps carefully, and my first choice is map 107B, and my second choice is map 102. Maps 107B and 102 have the largest concentration of Hispanic Latino residents and will also have clusters of folks with IDD. This is meaningful because they face similar barriers, and with these maps, they might be able to elect someone from within their community. They're often marginalized, they're low income, they live together, they're tight-knit. Can this be considered a community of interest? Can you please help this community have representation at CRPD? Please select the best maps for the community, even if it means some of you might lose your seats. It is my hope that you will consider map 107B for the good of the community. This is good governance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Carol. We appreciate your time. Next caller via Zoom would be Claudia Bilde-La-Pena. Okay, now we see your message that you're an attendee. Great, thank you very much, Claudia. I believe those are there's no one else online wishing to speak on that issue?
Nothing yet, no.
Okay.
I didn't hear what she said.
I had a little trouble hearing that.
I can do it into the mic. So if there are people on Zoom, we can't identify all of you, but if you would like to speak, please raise your hand on Zoom so that we know you want to speak.
No, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so there are no further public comments. I'm going to turn it back to our general manager.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hupper. So the board has heard a presentation similar to this. Wow, at least the last three meetings, I think, and then the prior meeting was the kickoff. So we've grown the number of maps, and at some point the board's probably going to need to begin the discussion to narrow it, and that certainly can wait till the next meeting if the board chooses. But going from 9 maps to 1, I think it'd be a lot harder than going from maybe 2 or 3 maps to 1. So I don't know if the board's in a position yet to start that discussion. And Dr. Levitt looks like he's got something as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just wanted to add that if you have any questions or requests for us to bring something back to the next meeting, tonight would be a good opportunity for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Board members, I don't know who had her hand up first, but I'm going to defer to Director Cusworth.
So I sort of came up with map 109. I'd like to congratulate Chase that he was able to do that on his own, because I had to have Dr. Levitt and Mr. Johnson help me to do that. So congratulations, that wasn't an easy task. So what I'd like to do is amend map 109, and in looking what you did, Chase, extend down Hillcrest Road to Rancho Caneo Boulevard, because there is another large Hispanic community that lives in some apartment buildings there. If you could put map 109 up, I'll show you. And I think that would raise the Hispanic number. Right now, map 109 has a higher Hispanic percentage than the school board map does. So I think that I was looking when I redid the map, I actually revised map 106, which unless the board was opposed to that, I would take map 106 out because I thought it looked odd. And maybe just, I was trying to keep more communities together. Is that 109? It was there for a minute. So I can come up and point. So what I think we need to do, there's no reason to have an abrupt cutoff right here. We should take it down to Rancho Caneo Boulevard. You can take it all the way to here, but this is mainly just commercial area. But so it should come down to here. So if we added in this area, I drove through this area just the other day, and it looks like it's a fairly dense apartment building area. And I believe that there is a high Hispanic population that goes along with this. I'm sure that one of the reasons that this is even put here is to kind of give a continuity to this. So I would say we need to extend the green area here to the board. This green area needs to come down to here, okay? So that we are including a whole apartment complex right here that is high Hispanic. It probably has a high percentage of Hispanic people, which would bring more of it should increase the population.
Just a brief reminder, they can't hear you on the Zoom.
If I could restate that maybe, because I know we got your email earlier this week and it was within the 7-day window, so we couldn't post a new map. But what we can certainly look at doing is, basically extending Area 3 out to include the apartments you mentioned all the way out. It's actually one census block that just goes all the way out between the freeway and Hillcrest. And then where we would lose population in Division 3 is probably east of the 23. I'll take that just all the way down to Hillcrest, like it is in many of the other maps. And that would be a population balanced move.
One concern that I have, and I'll speak in because it's not something. Don't worry, I didn't say anything important. One concern that I had when I looked at the maps, but we could go just down Hillcrest, that would be a good option. But if we look at 109, one thing I like about 109 quite a bit, we have a Hispanic population of about 20%. If we could bring that up to 21 or 22 by adding in that other section, I think that would be, a nice addition. What I get concerned about is when you get down to the voter registration, it starts going down considerably to where we'll sometimes get, 2,000 to 3,000 less in the other maps now, and sometimes even 7,000 less in the other maps, which was concerning to me, that it might have a high population, but then we have a very low voter registration, or we have a very low citizen voting age. So I was taking all of those into consideration when I looked at this, so that we would have somewhat of equal amounts of voter age and voter registration. So even though in this map, it's showing the total population as being the highest, when you come down to actual voter registration, it goes down to being the very lowest. So we could just go all the way down Hillcrest, but also I could talk with you another time to make another map that would be up here next time, which would be somewhat of a seeing if we could keep that voter registration and voter age to be similar to the other ones, so that we're not going down so low. I like 17B, but I think our voter turnout goes down to about 7,000 people. And that's what's kind of, where is it? Yeah, well, that was in 2008. We were at 7,000 people, which was like 7,000 less. Here we're at 11,000 for the voter turnout. It just gets thousands less. And so I thought maybe we need to have a little bit more population if that's the case. If we're going down several thousand less in voter age and in voter registration. So I don't know if that's necessary or not, or anything. I'm pretty new to this, but it seemed like it should be a consideration in keeping all of the districts equal. So, but I am very concerned. I think we do need to support our Hispanic population, and that's what everybody has basically been saying. When I looked at this map, another consideration that I had was trying to keep some neighborhoods together, like trying to keep, when I looked at it, trying to keep some neighborhoods that are using the same parks. Some of them were cutting neighborhoods completely in half that were actually going to be involved in the same park, such as our new Page Lane neighborhood park. If we take that whole circle right there in the middle, this was one of the things that Page Lane neighborhood park was built for. And so I kind of wanted to keep some of our neighborhoods together. That was one of the considerations that we look at neighborhood lines. And if we add in that other section, it's a very clean map because you're just following the freeway. You've got Hillcrest, you've got Jans Road, and then you'll either, I'll show you some other alternatives. If we don't need to add population into that, we could leave it the way it is. I didn't like how it looked aesthetically because it had that big right angle. Because you're there in open space, it may not be a problem. But I'd like to see how much more population that one section is going to be, to see if we need to cut because I don't want Section 3, when we get down to their voter registration, to be 5,000 and 6,000 population less. I mean, you could have, we need to have similar voting age, I believe. I think that that should be a consideration. So that was something that I was looking for in map 109, but I would like to get that Hispanic percentage up because I think that that's very, very important. So that's my comment. And then if you could get back to me so that by next week we could know what that Hispanic population is, and that we could also be looking at our citizen voting age and our voter registration to make a comparison.
Okay, before I turn it over to Director Nichols, I just a question. When we're talking about Hispanic voters, you've probably explained this before, but are we most concerned with numbers of voting age population, or are we more concerned about voter registration?
Well, yeah, thank you for that question and for all of your comments, Director Cusworth. I do want to clarify a couple of things, which is that we do expect that there will be a difference between the voting age and the citizen voting age population totals in each of the divisions. And that's because we see different rates of families with children. We see different rates of citizenship in each of the different divisions. And so even if it's equal by total population, we may see some differences. And in fact, that may be an empowering thing, because that would mean, especially in Division 3, you need fewer votes to get elected. You need fewer, you could concentrate your resources if you're running a campaign there more effectively. Obviously, that's because of differences in citizenship rates and differences in the percentage of families that have children at home who can't or not eligible to vote. And if you look at our, this is just an example, but if you look at our congressional districts, you'll see wide differences in the number of eligible voters in each of the congressional districts. Some districts have a high of 500,000 or more eligible voters. Other districts have half of that. And that's just a part of the districting process. And in fact, it's part of what the Voting Rights Act can require. Because if a community has low voter registration, that could be an example of a problem that needs to be solved by the Voting Rights Act.
Okay, I was wondering if it could be argued that if you're looking primarily at the voting age population, that if a higher percentage in that area, in that district, they might be, more of them might be encouraged to vote, encouraged to register, if they feel like they're getting better representation.
That is certainly one of the hopes, and certainly something we certainly saw in the Voting Rights Act in the South and in Native American reservations back in the 60s, when the Voting Rights Act first came into being. Those registration rates climbed very dramatically once we had districts in place that represented those communities and helped them get materials sometimes in languages other than English. So that's something that we are paying very close attention to as part of this process. And you'll see the differences if you just compare the total racial demographics to the citizen voting age or eligible voter demographics. You'll note that there's a big difference. There's a drop in the Latino population that suggests that there are Latinos who are either more likely to be younger and therefore not voting because they're under 18, or not citizens and not voting or not eligible to vote because they're not citizens. So it won't be, I can almost assure you won't be perfectly equal between the different divisions when we look at it, but we can certainly give you those numbers so you can look at the differences between the maps in terms of that.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize, Director Nichols. I had a question, wanted to clarify comments from Director Cusworth. So Director Nichols.
Thank you. Thank you for the additional information on that. As I was looking over all the maps earlier today, I was kind of reflecting on what you'd talked about in the past, is where you have the federal guidelines, the principles for designing the various divisions in our case, that you seem to keep pressing on the need to identify communities and neighborhoods that should be together and shouldn't be divided, at least hopefully to do that. And as I was going over the maps, I just knowing the city the way that I do, I mean, I've been here for almost 40 years, I'm looking at some areas and I was thinking, especially on the boundaries between sections, I thought, well, gosh, that neighborhood really kind of associates with that neighborhood. They should be together. And they're, you know, these are throughout all the different maps. I could see that time and again. And I would want to recommend to you, say, okay, this neighborhood should be over here. Well, I don't know what the population total is for that particular area. So I can, you know, maybe ask you to take a look at that, because once you move one piece over, well, then that affects all the others. And I know it's quite the challenging effort to balance all these principles. But is that the type of information that you are looking for if we, you know, either individually or collectively identify the neighborhoods, whether it be a Hispanic community or just, you know, neighborhoods that around a neighborhood park that like to associate together, say, you know, that really should be together. And then I guess it's up to you to kind of go into the numbers and the census data and start trying to balance that where it's feasible. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. And, you know, part of why we bring different maps forward is because we try to keep different areas or communities together in different ones. It almost certainly will not be possible to keep every community or potential community together.
Certainly.
And so it's figuring out where does it make sense to put the boundaries sometimes within those communities when that's the case. Sometimes it's just a question of geography. There are some of these census blocks that put cul-de-sacs or neighborhoods that are on either side of a canyon or either side of a property subdivision boundary into one census block. And we're just looking at it and going like, well, there's no choice. We have to keep this block together. We can't divide the census block. So do we put it with District A or District B?
Okay. And I know something we talked about as a board in some previous discussions about, since our task is parks, that's what we do, is to be able to have a map that shows where park locations are. And I know there is like some hash marks beneath here, but it's very hard to distinguish where those parks are. Yeah, I know the interactive one, but even then it's hard. I thought, you know, if we could, you know, remove the school icons and instead just have parks with an icon where it kind of help us identify where these potential neighborhood areas were surrounding parks, I would find that helpful if that's possible.
Well, I mean, one of the challenges of just using a dot for a park is that a lot of the parks are very large and some of them are in more than one division. And we certainly could do that. And I'm not saying that if that's the request, we can certainly bring that back. But we don't want to mislead people with saying, oh, this park's in Division 1 because that's where the dot gets put. And it's actually divided between divisions 1, 2, and 4, let's say.
Well, for me, it was just more being able to readily identify them. And I know you can go to the interactive one and do a little bit better, but sometimes I just like to see it on a single sheet of paper. I can see the whole thing at once. Okay. And I just would find that beneficial if that's possible. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, Director Lang.
Thank you. And thank you all for turning out and providing your input. It's appreciated. I'm sure all the other directors for the last few meetings have been contemplating this task at hand. And listening to Cusworth's and some of her additional comments, and in general from the very beginning, I don't want to get caught up too much in the minutia. You know, if this person is a resident of a particular area, but they're of another ethnic background, I mean, we could get caught up in so much minutia. I think we need to step back and just narrow it down to a couple, the primary ones that are really important to enable us to follow the law. I mean, a lot of this other stuff, people registered, not registered, who knows what mood they were in and they didn't register and they could have. I mean, there's too many variables from as far as I'm concerned. I think we should narrow it down to maybe the top 2 that are required, and let us look at those statistics and determine what best fits that. This will happen again in next election or census
2030.
So some of these pieces of information can be fine-tuned as we get close to the next census. I'm just right now, this is all new to us. We were moving right along as many people. I've lived here about 60 years when there was less than 20,000 people in our community. I participated in so many organizations that helped this community grow and become what it is today. So I see a great core community that's done so much, and I hear comments all the time. We appreciate what we've got here. I mean, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but we have a couple individuals who have contributed so much to this community, even before they became known. And it's individuals that involved with our reign of terror. And we know how popular that is and how much benefit that brings to our community. But it started out as just a neighborhood event, and see what it's grown to today. So I think we should step back, have our consultant provide the top 2 or 3, this is just my input, main criteria that we need to consider at this time. And I don't want to get down to who's registered, who isn't registered, who has a green mailbox, who has a red mailbox. I'm not interested in that. I want to get down to what is required. We've got lots of things to do as a board of directors to run our park district, to keep our park district. We were #1 in the state of California and in the top 4 in the nation. That didn't just happen. These board members contributed. We had a board member living in Newbury Park for 18 years, almost 20 years, and he had input. We all have input on a general concern of our parks and serving our community, recreation and so forth. We didn't concern ourselves with different races or anything like that. I understand where we're at today and I support it, but I just don't want us to get so involved in things that aren't that really important to what our task is as directors of our Conejo Recreation and Park District. So, naturally we'll keep moving forward on this, but I just don't want you to have to, a string of requirements that are going to change maps here, going to change maps there. I think, you're a paid consultant, and we need to have you focus on what's important and go from there. And again, I want to thank all of you who've, shown up tonight. I'll go back. I said I've been here almost 60 years, and that's before CRPD had many tennis courts. I think the only one they had was at Stella Park. I used to play at the high school, Thousand Oaks High School, tennis with a group of guys, a black fellow, another individual of another ethnic background and so forth. We just got out there and played and had a great time. And that's what our community is all about. And I think our Rec and Park District, along with so many community partners, I don't know if you guys know, but there's 3 special district park districts in South Ventura County. And all 4 park districts were created before their cities were created. So that shows you how important recreation and parks and so forth, programs like that, open space, is to our residents. And I think we should continue to focus on those priorities and serve whatever ethnic background you are, serve you as a whole, and make you included, inclusive, and so forth, like what we have been doing. So I appreciate all of your input. We've got lots of information to digest, go through, but I just don't want us to get so involved in a little minutia that's right now not going to make that much difference, or it's not that important as far as the law requirements are concerned. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Lang. And Director Buss, before I get to you, just have a question for Director Lang. You mentioned narrowing it down to 2 or 3 maps. Do you personally at this point have any?
No, not maps.
2 or 3?
Not maps. That's not what I said. The statistics, like Director Cusworth was talking about registered voters. And then there's other requirements that we have to consider. And I think, that's something to be aware of, but I don't think that should be a decision point. I'm not going to put down, oh, registered voters, I'm not going to vote for this, I'm going to vote for that. I think the important thing is the top, you know, is it the ethnic, the Hispanic. I don't want to get into too much personal things, but I was very involved in athletics growing up in high school. I was co-back Van Nuys High School, and my co-back, this is for the season, for the awards, was, he's Hispanic, I'm trying to think of his name. But anyway, we didn't concern ourselves with, you know, whether he can play this position, I can play that position. We were together as a team. And that's how I see our Conejo Valley, as a whole unit. We don't need to be divisive. We see enough divisiveness all around us in this world. So I think this is a good opportunity to continue what we've had going. We've got award-winning organization. Let's build on it. Let's not start dividing it too much. So I'm sorry, it was not the maps. It was just a basic criteria that.
Okay, I apologize for
That's okay.
misunderstanding. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Buss.
As a residential real estate agent in this area for the last 12 years, I've grown up here since I was 1986. I think that map, the problem I have with map 109 is that there are definitely, like in real estate, when we are listing homes and we're looking at where you're located within the Conejo Valley, there are very definite areas. And so the center of Thousand Oaks is considered, which runs down the 23 on the west side, is considered the older population homes. And you generally see they're more affordable. And then you do see the more affordable older homes. Again, these are all homes usually built in the 50s and 60s along the 101. I think that we have to look at our safe passages partner and where their constituents are. And I agree that I think that the lines need to be definitely drawn to Rancho Conejo Road along that hillcrest. That is one of our largest safe passages communities. So that's kind of where, and then also Westlake, I mean, we've got right there the Hexagon neighborhood. That's Westlake Hills is what that neighborhood's called. So if you want Westlake to be in a district, then you really should cut. That's why 107 really does cut them the way we use them in real estate, just on a residential level. But yeah, so I think that it would be great to have a Newberry Park kind of district, a Westlake district, and then Thousand Oaks does have its more affordable home areas. And then it does have the east and west sides, hemispheres. That's the way we look at it in real estate. So if you went to list your house, that's the way we define it in all of our companies. So it's very similar to what we use in real estate for 107, 102, and 109 just kind of divides it up a little. Weird for what we do in residential. Just my perspective on it.
Good, thank you. Director Lang.
I'm sorry, just a correction for our consultant. We're the Conejo Recreation Park District, not the Conejo Valley, like the Conejo Valley Unified School District. We're just Conejo Recreation and Park District. And I note on here that you have a V in there.
Okay, take it out.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah. Were there any other comments? Okay, a couple of observations and comments, my personal observations. I'm a little uncomfortable with, and I don't recall all the maps. I know map 101 and I believe 107 and 107B. I don't know if it makes a huge difference, but those three maps all have 2 of the 5 divisions that would be vacant for at least 2 years. If the purpose of dividing us into divisions is to make sure that each of the areas in the community is represented, I'm not sure if you have 2 vacant divisions, whether those divisions are really being properly represented. So I particularly for map 101, I'm not really comfortable with map 101 for that and several other reasons. I know we're going to have to narrow it down, eventually come up with one choice, but of the maps that I've looked at, the map 102, the idea of dividing the looking at the freeways as sort of a natural division. We don't have any major rivers or anything like that that are geographical divisions, but the freeways are pretty natural divisions. And so the map 102, I think, pretty well takes those into account. It does in Division 3, it includes, I believe, most of the areas that we were talking about along the 101 freeway, including the apartments just south of the south of Hillcrest. So I think map 102 would be one of those that I prefer. I know there's been some comments. I don't believe there are any tonight, but in earlier nights, some of our speakers were commenting about maps 103 and 104. I would agree, those look like very strange areas. Both map 103 and 104 have a division that basically runs from the northeast corner of the district all the way to the southwest corner of the district, and strikes me as being a little bit odd, even though it does allow, both of those would allow all four current directors to retain their seats. That personally, I mean, I would love to be able to retain my seat, but looking at those maps, I think those are rather illogical. I think it was maps 5 and 105, 106. We were looking at how to handle Conejo Creek parks, because that is our largest single park. And I guess I'm not wildly enthusiastic about either of those. 107 and what I guess particularly 107B, even though it does leave two vacant divisions for at least 2 years. The speakers tonight and earlier speakers certainly made some very valid points, and I think that would be worth considering. So either 107 or 107B would certainly be in my personal list of those that I would continue to consider. So those are my personal comments on the maps. We as a board have our homework cut out for us in the next 2 weeks to we have to eventually come down with one. I know Director Lang was putting, now I will because you were not talking about maps, you were talking about the statistics. So scratch that from record, please. So between now and 2 weeks from now, we as the board have a lot of homework to narrow this down to one preferred map. So I would like to add my thanks that Director Lang also mentioned, not just those of you who spoke tonight, but for the previous 4 meetings. Director Lang's been on the board for forever, for a long time. I've been on the board for more than 10 years, and rarely, if ever, see this kind of turnout, but more importantly, this kind of interest in something that the Park District is involved in. Every year we have hearings on our budgets, and we're talking millions and millions of dollars, and nobody shows up. So to see this level of interest is really gratifying. So thanks to all of you tonight and in previous nights for turning out for these public hearings. So if there are no other, Director Nichols.
Just to follow up, Yeah, again, thank you all for your participation in multiple times, and I presume we'll see you again in a couple of weeks, and thank you for being engaged. Chair Huffer just kind of tickled my interest button here when we do have rare occasions where we do have a group of people here of not only just to hear what's going on, but to be engaged and be actively involved. And that's a refreshing sight. And I appreciate all those of you who have taken the time. Chase, obviously you spend a lot of time involved with this. Thank you for that extra effort going above and beyond, rather than just poking holes at someone else's recommendation, but providing something else to consider. So yeah, it's been a bit overwhelming, still is. I don't know where we're going to end up on this, but appreciate everyone's participation this far. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Did you have any, were you going to raise your hand again, Director Lang?
Okay. Let's see if you were really listening and if this means something to you. Jesse Barraza. Does that, anybody pick up on that? My co-football back of the year, Jesse Barraza and George Lang. And I finally remembered it. But anyway, I'm just stating that years ago, we were all one team, one community, etc. And we were best of buddies and so forth. And different ethnic background. I had different ethnic background in my extended family, but that wasn't what was important. It's who you are, what you do. And that's another thing. We see a lot of people showing up tonight. We've been around for 60 years. Have any of you been out involved with CRPD, showing up to various events? We just had a groundbreaking of a brand new park, Page Lane Community Neighborhood Park. I didn't see you there. Oh, okay. But anyway, I did remember Chase. I'm sorry. But anyway, it isn't just, here I am, Johnny come lately. You need someone who's been involved, shown interest, and really willing to get involved and participate and contribute.
Thank you, Director Lang. Mr. Friedel, is there anything that you need to wrap up with?
No, I'd say that you guys are all fairly aware of the number of maps that you were going to have to wrestle with, and the difficulty that you have tonight will be the same difficulty we have 2 weeks from now. So study the maps, know what you're looking at. I don't know if we're going to get a 109A or B or
We're
something.
probably going to have a 109B based on Mrs. Director Cussworth's.
So
We will definitely.
based on that very specific tweak. So that will be
it'll be coming probably early next week.
To then narrow down to hopefully one map. So
I think that Director Huffer, Chair Huffer gave some ideas to take some out, or do we want to make a vote to take those out? But I don't want to take out map 109 or 109B potentially. But I mean, are we agreed to take out the ones that you mentioned? We could take those out.
We certainly could do that if that's the pleasure of the board. That certainly would make our homework over the next 2 weeks a little bit easier.
Could that be shared later on?
It needs to be done publicly.
Okay.
So we either do it tonight or start with that process in 2 weeks to, as part of the meeting, to get from 10 down to 1. So there are several different ways we can look at it. I've talked with Mr. Friedel. We can eliminate certain maps on a more negative note, or we can decide which maps we really like. Perhaps top 2 or top 3, and from that, if there's some agreement, everyone or most everyone likes map X, Y, or Z, so their number one choice, then that would make the decision pretty easy. But I don't believe we're at a point tonight where we could do that top 2 or 3. least I haven't heard that we're at that point.
We're not.
And quite honestly, I would personally prefer that we go with a more positive approach, that we select maps that we like, as opposed to eliminating maps in your own mind as you're deciding which ones you think are best. Certainly eliminate the ones, in your own list of 10 maps. These are the bottom 3 or 4. These are the top 2 or 3. Yes, Director Nichols.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I think with the information we've gathered tonight, with even some of the limited input, maybe we all come back with our own priority list, or at least based on our own top 2 or 3, and then we can put that on the table for discussion and start with that.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. I think that's a good way to go.
Thank you,
I would
Director Lang.
I would totally agree. And I think the information we've gathered tonight will be part of my decision-making process and on all of them. So I'd like to see us start off next meeting with eliminating various maps rather than tonight.
Okay. Director Buss?
When do we have to have the final map by? Are we doing that next meeting? So shouldn't we be?
I'm going to leave this to Mr. Friedel.
Yeah, per our adopted and published schedule, we're scheduled to do the final decision at the next meeting in 2 weeks. If for some reason that were not possible, the actual 90-day limit that we're under, legal obligation to act within 90 days of when this process began, I think we still have one more meeting that could squeeze in there. So I think it would be the first meeting in February would be like the 89th day or something. I didn't want to give you guys the out, but theoretically we could go another meeting if you like doing this a lot. So so yeah, getting from the number of maps down to the one map is a process that we really got to undertake at some point. But we've been getting a lot of input and we have a lot of maps to consider, but I know we can do it in one night. I know you guys have the ability to do it. So
we're not removing any maps. We don't feel like we should just remove a few, and then we only have to look at 5 of them.
I think we're coming back with we're going to come back with our top 2 or 3 maps, and then we'll look at it from there.
Yeah, my preference would be each of us individually can eliminate certain maps right off because you think this is absolutely horrible. We can choose 1, 2, or 3 that we think are spectacular, and with a little further discussion in 2 weeks, narrow that 1, 2, or 3 top choices that the majority of us agree to, so we can have, I would like to have a final decision in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Dr. Levitt, thank you so much for your time and all of the information that you've provided and continue to provide. And with that, I'm going to close this public hearing. Those of you who are here on this topic, you're welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting. I promise lots of entertainment. Not. If you wish to leave, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Thank you very much. We are going to move on to item 8, items for discussion. Mr. Friedel.
Thank you, Chair Hupper, members of the board. So you received an email and have, I think, at your dais, the draft of the commission or the committee and appointments for 2023. I actually don't have that in front of me. I still have thank you. Thank you. So so we'd asked each of you to state your preferences with the committees. And so the yellow highlighted sections of this document are what basically everyone told me. So the areas that really where we have to kind of narrow down the choices here. We have 2 directors that expressed interest in Conejo Coalition for Youth and Families. So directors Buss and Cusworth. And then everything else seemed to kind of settle in pretty well. We need to select another director to serve with Director Cusworth on the art committee. And then the bottom 2 committees, the ad hoc property acquisition and ad hoc pickleball, we have 1 director on each that was there before, and then we've had 2 directors express interest in both of those. So my quick and dirty analysis is that they're fairly balanced by the numbers. If Marissa gets 2 of those 3 spots, and then she'd be up to 5, I think, like, and everyone else is at 5 or 6, I believe, in terms of balance.
But we can just have 2 on each committee, right?
Correct. So we got to, yes, like on the property and the pickleball, like maybe it's both Marissa and Doug is the kind of the one or the other. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You could, could go a different way, but if you guys would decide who gets which one, maybe, and then.
And actually, just to clarify, the Conejo Coalition for Youth and Families, that is just one individual.
Yeah, so that can only be one individual. And then I don't know if you knew this, Cusworth. I know you're Director Cusworth, you're planning to have more free time in the near future, but that committee currently meets on Wednesday mornings.
How often? How often do you?
Every 2 months, like
It's,
6 times a year.
yeah, February, April, May, June, yeah, every couple months, every other month.
So if we did something like that, could we have 2 of us on there and we could alternate when we went? So maybe Director Buss could go until I retire and then we could go every other month, or is this something that we should be there every single month?
Rochelle, you have.
What do you think?
You know, my preference would be the same person the whole time, because you build a relationship with the city person and the school district person and you're the same people on it. And then it could be rediscussed at the next time you do meetings.
All right, so I guess for now, I'm not going to take a day off to go to a meeting, so we'll cross me off of that. But
And we look at this every year, so.
But I really would like to be on that, maybe next year when I'm no longer working. If that's okay with you.
Yeah,
Director
no,
Buss, is
that sounds
fine?
great.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, and Director Nichols, you had the comment?
Yes. I don't recall volunteering for the pickleball committee.
Actually, that.
I don't either.
I don't need.
Okay, all right. That's fine.
Thank you for taking that.
I was like, I don't know, that was not on my email.
That's fine.
That is so funny.
So I guess which of you wants to least be on that?
I will defer to Marissa to take the property acquisition.
I would prefer that. I was gonna say, I'll trade you
And I didn't know
pickleball
if you
for.
volunteered for that one. or
I
not.
did.
She did.
Okay,
I
all right.
Excellent.
I was 1 for 2.
Okay. So then you're gonna take the pickleball?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take pickleball.
Oh.
Okay.
So this is not action. We will vote on this.
I'll bring this back with those changes. Lean, you got those? So, because I didn't have my piece of paper.
It's right there.
Oh, thank you, sir. I can have this.
You can have it.
Okay. All right.
Oh my gosh, that's too
All right,
funny.
cool. That'll be easy, you guys. That was great.
So let me
That's
say
just how the
one
maps will
thing.
go too.
Well, let me say one other thing. I think I can be the only one on the art committee, but it is art, education, and history.
Art,
It's not just art.
education, and history.
It's
Actually,
art, education, and history.
and actually, yeah, while we're on this, does anyone want to step up and join Nellie on art, education, and history?
Well, I can be enough
gonna
for
make a
2
comment.
people because I'm going to really advocate for this. This is
How
I'll
often
second
does it
that
meet?
motion.
what?
How often does that one meet?
Like
Sorry.
once a year, but I want to up that.
The art committee.
Art, education, and history. And so what I'm interested in doing, we have done one thing, I don't know if it came through the committee, but we did those field trips to the schools.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
when Tom was here, we had like 1 meeting just to kind of see what was going on and stuff, but we haven't had, it
We've had
doesn't
2
have
meetings
a.
for it, I think, because just
Oh,
before
that's great.
Penny
I'll
Lane,
take
we
it.
did another one.
I'll take it.
Oh, you gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta.
Unless, were you
Yeah.
volunteering? for
I was
that?
going to make a comment, and I don't think anybody in this room knew this. But there were 3 individuals on the community for art, I think was the name of the committee, in 92. And I was nominated by the CRPD board to be CRPD's representative on the community art committee in selecting art for the community. I think there was another term somebody might remember. I came home at 92. I came home at that meeting and shared the information with my wife, and she started laughing. She knows my ability in art and so forth. You know, I had classes and so forth, but when it comes to decorating a house and picking art, and so I didn't pass her muster. But anyway, can anybody name the one piece of art, and this is in 30 some years, that our community collectively, city, school district, and park district, maybe it was just this city and a park district, one piece of art in our community that came out of that 1992 event and nothing since.
I'm going to bet that it is the grandfather and the grandchild sitting in front of the Goebel Center.
You are so right. That's
And I would
we-
like to say, George, one thing. My husband is an artist. That's what he does for a living, as an artist and an art teacher.
I should get to
But
know
does-
him better.
But he does not decorate our house. So I think it was good that you did defer to your wife on house decor, and you're nodding there. I mean, I think no matter how well you know art, you should defer to your wife's taste.
So can I also confirm that you're deferring to Director
Yes,
Buss
well, that-
to be the
Director
second?
Buss take that
Thank you
position.
very much. We're going to move right along to new items. Number 9A, temporary lease agreement with Reign of Terror Haunted House. Wonder what that is. So are we going directly to the new kid on the block? Or are we going to?
No, it's
It's
Rochelle.
not.
Oh, it's Rochelle. Okay.
I'm not the new kid anymore.
No, you're an old hand by now.
Except for
so-
I've got to pull up my board minutes now. Thank you, Chair Huffer, member of the board. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about Reign of Terror again. This is a little earlier than we normally do it because we are on the ball and ready to go for the next year. They had an awesome year this year in full force, and I'll let Bruce and Mary tell you more later. But as many of you know, and I'm sure that Chair Buss has probably been to the Reign of Terror before, but oh no, she's got to go. It's next year. I won't go in the dark. I've only been, I did it in the day this year. It was great. It scared the heck out of me. But Reign of Terror started in 1999 with Bruce at his home in Thousand Oaks. He had some folks that were there that came in, got real popular. He then asked or somehow partnered up with us. 8 years later, CRPD stepped in. We helped him. He relocated to Hillcrest Center. In 2009, I think there was another move in there somewhere too, but I'm not positive. But
It was in this room.
yeah, in this room, this little tiny room, and now it's like 130 rooms or something like that. So, and then in 2009, Reign of Terror and CRPD, we helped move them over to the Thousand Oaks Marketplace, which is the Jan Small. And we were actually there for many, many years with no rent. And it was very generous of the Thousand Oaks Marketplace. In recent years, we have negotiated some different things. We've relocated again to a different location, but still at the Jones Mall at the Thousand Oaks Marketplace. Bruce and his nonprofit is paying a rent. So they're at $85,000 this year. With that being said, over all the years that he's been doing it since he started donating to us, we have received and been the beneficiaries of $427,000 in donations. Yay. And that has continually gone to two programs, Caneo Theater for Everyone, and then the Thousand Oaks Teen Center. Sarah, our supervisor from the Teen Center, and then obviously Bruce and Mary are in the audience. So in your packet, what you see is this year's agreement with the Thousand Oaks Marketplace. And for the rental, the lease agreement, really the only thing that's changed in that agreement is that the rent went from $75,000 to $85,000. The dates that are in there, and I think that might be it, the dates and the rent. So with that, staff is asking that you authorize the general manager to sign so that he can the agreement with Reign of Terror Haunted House Incorporated and the Thousand Oaks Marketplace. And with that, I'm available for questions, but Bruce and Mary, do you guys want to say anything? And I know Sarah has something that you want, I believe. Do you want to say anything, Bruce or Mary?
No, other than it was. Will you get up to the podium, please?
Other than it was a very successful year, so I know all of you very well. Except for
Marissa Buss.
She said she wants a tour of the.
No. Oh my God.
Yeah, she'll take Rochelle. Have Rochelle take you on a tour.
All right. So, I mean, the Haunted House has been an incredible adventure. It's been extremely rewarding to the community, extremely rewarding to Mary and I. The lease is coming newer this year because of the hotel. I actually thought this might be the last year. Darren, who was kind of the leasing manager, reached out to me in October and said, you know, do you guys want to do this another year? And of course we do. So that's where this started. I mean, my gut feeling tells me that there'll be no way for them, and they realize this, to move forward with the hotel and any demolition in the calendar year of 2023. So that's why they've given this lease agreement to us now. I mean, we're extremely excited to move forward. The event has gotten bigger and better every year, even though with we had a lot of pent up demand from 2021 from not running in 2020. We actually did better this year. I mean, the word is out. More than 60% of the people, probably closer to 70% of the people that attend the Reign of Terror, we're at 25,000 people attending, do not live in the Conejo Valley. So we are getting people from other states. We have a huge, in fact, the largest city of online ticket purchases from the Reign of Terror is actually Los Angeles, LA proper. So not Woodland Hills or Sherman Oaks, actually LA. That's the #1 city that buys tickets. Now we do have a ticket booth that we don't really sell a lot of tickets to, and that's probably more of our local community, but it's really grown. And we've had risk-free. Thank you for the collaboration and the support of having the sheriffs there. So we've run this thing now for 20 something years, for 15 years as a partnership with 0 incidences. And it's all because of the group that we have together. But I think we know what to do. We're doing the right thing. We cater to the right group. As you talked about, I mean, the Conejo Valley is an incredible place. And I think people that come here see that there's wonderful benefits, and we run a top class organization. So we're excited to do it again. We wish your blessing to sign off doing it. Of course, we're assuming all responsibility for any financial means for it. And fortunately, the Haunted House is good enough to be able to cover those costs. So that.
Great. So I will take board questions or comments. I saw Director Lang's hand first.
Yes.
And you're going to have only one time.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you for the kind words with this group of people. I thought they were our supporters until I realized what was going on.
Well, they're well-deserved. They're from the heart, and appreciate you and Mary. As Bruce and Mary know, CRPD has been kind of key, you know, for a number of years, and 2 previous CRPD board members were instrumental, as you know, in moving it from the neighborhood to here as an interim and then to Jance. And those were directors Dennis Gillette and City Council member Dennis Gillette, and Conejo Rec Park District Director John Short. One, and I don't know if it was the very last one at your house or the one previous, those 2 individuals were attending, and they saw the traffic issue associated with people trying to get to the Reign of Terror and at Bruce's house. And they got out there, the 2 individuals in the night, I don't know if they had flashlights or what, but they were directing traffic so that the police wouldn't have an issue and get called by neighbors and so forth. So CRPD has had this relationship with this organization, this idea, and I just thank you.
Yeah, it has been a picture perfect dream partnership. It is such a win-win-win for everybody. And I'm thankful for everything that you guys do and the help in keeping this going, and with everything that you guys provide. And it's areas that Mary and I really, I mean, we love the aspects of building and the designing and the development of the haunted house, but some of the things that you guys help with is really not what we want to do. I mean, this is I've said it 1,000 times, this is a huge labor of love, and that's really what it is. And we do this because we love doing it. We've raised some money on our special off-season events for some animal shelters, and, you know, it's kind of sharing the wealth. So it's a great story how this whole thing started. I say it a little bit different, where the city came to me and said, we love what you're doing, but you can't do it anymore, but we'd love for you to do it for us. So it was perfect. And we want to help. Heather Danko was instrumental in getting us involved in the Jan's Marketplace because of your relationship through the fireworks. So it's such a great way of showing how the community has come together to help people out for such a good cause.
And I hope you have another venue all in mind when the Jan's Marketplace goes through its renovations.
Well, they're actually moving us towards the upper floor of Burlington Coat Factory.
Right.
I mean, it's an idea.
Lots of ideas.
Yeah. So it would be a challenge to find another space, especially with the amenities that has, but that would probably check the box.
I know you'll work it out.
Because you guys sure as
Best.
heck won't give us this roof again.
No.
I don't think it's big enough.
No. Are there any other questions for staff or for Bruce? Director Cusworth?
Well, my first question was where you're going to move to, but no, you answered that. And then I really wanted to go this year. I was out of town for a lot of October. Are you going to be doing anything in the summer?
So we're going to do a halfway to Halloween, which developed because the plan was when we were shut down during COVID, I told our staff that as soon as we can open, we're going to open, regardless of when it was. It happened to be right at about halfway to Halloween. It was a clever way to market it. It was very successful because of the pent-up demand. We tried it again last year and it was equally successful. I mean, Halloween in Los Angeles is becoming almost a 365-day-a-year event. So we'll be running it's in your dates, the last weekend of April. Then we'll run 17 nights in October and then 2 nights for a Christmas event.
So, Rochelle, I'm terrified of haunted houses, but I did go.
Yes, you did. So
after I went through a few and I was very scared, I started seeing it as an incredible art form. And so once you can
still won't do it in the dark.
I'm not going to die. These are all actors. Nobody's going to touch me. I could start seeing it as an art form. And my son, who's a connoisseur of haunted houses, has said there is going to be a day when these will be appreciated as an art form. So you have to kind of look at it that way. In fact,
the lights on, I can really appreciate it.
So I could really look at the details. And I was highly disappointed that we weren't going to get to go in and you were coming here as much as I like to see you here. I was thinking, oh, we're going to go back and get the check and I'm going to kind of try to peek around a little bit with the lights on. So anyway, thank you for doing this. It's a great thing for our community, a great way to bring people into our community and make money. Sure. I'm sure they're all, you know, eating at restaurants and doing things. It's probably great for the Jan's Mall. So thank you.
Yeah, they won't admit how
good
good
you
it
need
is.
to volunteer to take
We know
Michelle
it's
as your
good.
sort of your haunted house buddies. So
well, if you need like some old lady there, I love to act. So I'm going to be retiring. So if you want somebody that doesn't need a whole lot of makeup, I may even be having my hair go gray soon. So keep me in mind. I love to act. I can be scary. Anyway.
So just, I mean, a tiny, I mean, the Reign of Terror is becoming so popular and well-known throughout the whole Southern California area. Just a little story. I got a call 2 weeks ago from a guy who worked at the haunted house so long ago, I don't even remember who he is. I saw him and I didn't recognize him. And he was there just for one season. He started helping a effects company in Burbank. They worked on the show Dexter and they have donated. Well, actually, we bought a couple of bodies that were used in the show Dexter that elevate the artistic to a whole different level. The realism of the silicone is unbelievable. I mean, not that what we don't have isn't fantastic, but this, in fact, we were told that the two characters we have, they charge the Dexter $25,000 for one and $19,000 for the other.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, the lifelikeness is unbelievable.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm willing to be associated with an organization that's promoting terror.
That's right.
But thank you for what you do. I'm also one of those that would wave as people going through, but really don't want to terrorize myself. But thank you, and again, thank you for the contributions and all that you've done for our community. I do have one technical question for staff or for our guests. In looking at the temporary lease agreement, I noticed that it is with the Thousand Oaks Marketplace, CRPD, and the Reign of Terror Haunted House, Inc. Also, the signatories are the same, but in the body of it, it has Bruce Stanton responsibilities. And I'm just, wondering if that was intentional or if that should be the Reign of Terror responsibilities. And I'm not a legal person, but I'm just wondering if to protect Bruce and everybody else, if that needs to be modified or if that was intentional and should remain.
So I'm a get things done right now kind of guy. That was in there because originally the Reign of Terror was Bruce Stanton. Right. And now it's the Reign of Terror Haunted House Incorporated, a nonprofit, thanks to Jim and his advice over the years. So that just shows you how old this agreement is. And in order not to ruffle feathers at the Jan's Marketplace, I find the easier it is for them to just give it back to us, the better. So your answer would be absolutely. Do I have a problem with it? Not one bit.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure for those that are more knowledgeable about this than I am, but thank you.
Director Buss, did you have anything? No, you're volunteering to go any day though, no, right? Yeah, okay. First, I just wanted to add my thanks. I have gone to the event several times, managed to survive it, although the scariest is usually when I run across John Short there, but and for everything that you've done for the teen center and for our theater program, it's just unbelievable. And we're going to get a photo opportunity as soon as we act on this item 9A. So I would solicit a motion for the staff recommendation. Yes, our in person, our in residence artist.
Well, yeah, well, I am kind of an artist. I'm in an art show right now. If you guys want to go to the Newbury Park Gallery. So I guess I don't know what you were referring to. All right, I would like to recommend that we authorize the general manager to sign and execute a temporary lease agreement between the Thousand Oaks Marketplace, LP, and Reign of Terror Haunted House.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Go ahead, Marissa.
Yes, Marissa.
I second it.
Oh, well done. Okay, any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All
We're
right,
going to take a
and
brief pause to get a photo opportunity. Thank you for keeping us dry and warm as opposed to wet and rainy. So. All right, so equally exciting, moving on to 9B, reclassification of 3 existing positions. We're going directly to Ms. Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair Huffer and members of the board. I have a little presentation to give on this item. And yeah, it's not as exciting as Reign of Terror, so I apologize in advance. But so I'll let Stephanie open up. Not that presentation. We've done that quite a bit. Oh, no, you're fine. I can start talking and you can, it's there. I just have learned that you put pretty pictures up and everybody absorbs more information. So, but this is about 3 existing positions. It's an ongoing kind of perpetual process where we review our job descriptions to make sure they line up with the realities of our employees. Sometimes the reviews are initiated by the employee, sometimes by a supervisor, sometimes by a request for the union to look at an entire classification. But it's often done when there's a change in staffing. We look at where the responsibilities were, if any of those have to change, if they match the job descriptions. And in 2022, as I mentioned in the report, 20 of our full-time staff positions changed. So we looked at a minimum of 20 of these different classifications to make sure that as those positions came in and were replaced or moved around, that it was accurate. And so after all that work, and by all that work, I mean Shelley's work, who's our HR supervisor, who is on the Zoom as well, if we have any questions. After all that, we have 3 that we thought we should bring to the board. It's been a long time coming, as I hope you can tell in the job descriptions and the letters from the class and comp consultant. So the 3 that we identified that we thought we should bring to you are our open space technician, our pool operator / management aquatics, and our accounting assistant 2 position. And I also want to give, I think it's Aline's photo is up there on our presentation. So thank you for the photo. Some of these changes are for the job description and the range that the position is in. Some of it is changing the person from their existing job description to a different job description with some small tweaks to make that appropriate. But really all of these changes are about reflecting the actual in-house work that those employees are currently doing. So I'll go to the open space technician first. And again, I just like pretty photos for you all. So this was established in 2012 and we hadn't changed it. So there's been no adjustments to this position for 10 years. And if you look at those red line changes we're proposing, it was quite a bit of red line changes for this position. So once we got those changes kind of identified to be more accurate, we recognized that that was a lot of changes. So we submitted it for review to the class and consultant that had previously set up our structure to see if it was still an appropriate range after all of those changes. And so their letter is in there where they're recommending that change from range 33 to range 35 based on a lot of the changes in the red line version. And then based on our prior discussions with board when we had other changes in classifications, we're providing the org chart for that division so you can identify the red circle is the staff person that we're talking about. And then the proposed change will make it them and in the same kind of level as all those highlighted in green, because the requirements and the duties are now in line with the grounds worker one. So that's just so you can kind of see it in the org chart there. And I can stop at any time if you have any questions for these ones. I'm just trying to jot through them pretty quick. So that's the open space technician. And then we're going to our pool operator / management aquatics. So as the title kind of indicates, this position was originally intended to kind of be half rec coordinator, half maintenance for the pool. And over time, that rec coordinator responsibility has grown a lot and the maintenance responsibility has diminished, and we even have facilities maintenance staff now taking on that role. And so when we were looking at adjusting the job description accordingly, we were going to have to do a huge red line of that description to make it accurate. But if we looked at the regular rec coordinator position that we already have, it was completely appropriate. We just needed to add a little thing that said for aquatics, you need those lifeguard certifications. So that's the recommended change we're doing for that one, is getting rid of this position and moving the staff in this position to be a rec coordinator. What that looks like in the chart. So we've got the red circle at the very bottom. And then we're going to have that be in line with kind of that second column for all the work centers. And this change also allows us to treat aquatics just like the other work centers under rec. So there's the supervisor and the coordinator and the specialist, and it matches the structure of the different work centers.
I'm sorry, but just while we're on.
Sure.
Because that was, way down there. Are you going to move it up? I mean, is the flow chart.
We are trying to make it do that. But yes, it will be able to do that once we tweak it a bit, but we couldn't get it done for this one.
Oh, no, it was okay. I was just sort of wondering when I was looking.
Yeah, so it'll ideally look like that's kind of added to that same kind of structure, which is part of the reason we're changing it. So, sure.
I'm just, maybe you had a non-red line version in there. I just missed it, but up there you have the job title of pool operator manager, but on here you still have recreation supervisor.
So the red line is for for D you're talking about?
I'm not, yeah.
I can't see what you're pointing at. Oh, okay.
D is a supervisor.
Is that what you're referring to?
Well, yeah. So that would be changed. Instead of pool operator manager, it'd be changed to recreation supervisor.
The pool operator manager would become a recreation coordinator.
A recreation coordinator.
Yes.
Okay.
And that would bring them in line with the other recreation coordinators that are kind of highlighted in green in that second row.
Okay.
Got it. Sorry, I didn't understand it first.
Thank you.
Okay. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Yes. You got it? Okay.
You're doing great.
All right. And so last but not least are my beloved accountants. We traditionally have an accounting supervisor and 3 assistants. The assistants can be assistants 1, 2s, or 3s. Currently, they're all 2s. However, our most experienced assistant 2 has taken on a lot of responsibilities that have been held previously by an accounting assistant 3, and in addition has taken on the responsibilities that are related to our e-commerce activities, registration, reservations. When someone's credit card is declined, she's the one on the phone doing that customer service with them. She's the one making sure things balance with those systems at the end of the day and our bank. So her level of expertise in those things also allows her to be a trainer and oversee the other assistant twos. So we thought it was appropriate for her to be an assistant 3 and just change that job description a little bit to include that e-commerce stuff that is increasing over time and growing and becoming more of our day-to-day kind of in the background of running those things. So with that, here is the chart. And I also wanted to point out that this doesn't show the finance staff for MRCA, but this position does work closely with those 10 people. And by doing this, it also mirrors the structure on the MRCA side. So she would have a corresponding partner on the MRCA side for this as well. So trying to mirror that in that relationship. And then finally, I just wanted to say thank you, and that these changes would result in about an $18,000 increase for the rest of the year across all of those positions. It's absorbable within those different work centers, so we wouldn't need any budget adjustments or anything like that to accommodate. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Smith? Shaking heads down there. Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is, why is the open space technician referred to as open space technician as opposed to a park ranger technician, since it seems to be in the park ranger series?
Oh, I don't know. Any idea? I don't know that we can ask our new class and comp person to look into that, because I'm not sure why we would call it that.
Logical to me.
And it might be because again, terminology with, hey, if it's a ranger, it kind of changes if it falls within that versus just being, open space. So, and I know park rangers have cross capabilities too, from parks to open space as well. So but yeah, question for class and comp.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay,
but
all right. The other question I had was with, I've got a few here, forgive me. With the rec coordinator for aquatics, I was looking at the job description with the different requirements. I noticed that it's, basically just your recreation coordinator, the vanilla version. But then under certificates and licenses, you have for therapeutics, they have a couple items there. And then for aquatics has a few items there. And yet all of these rec coordinators are at the same range, correct? Same
yes, they're at
range?
the same range, correct.
But I'm just curious as to if there's a greater expectation or greater responsibility or whatever, however you want to categorize that for therapeutics and aquatics. It seems like they have to keep up the licenses and certifications and things like that. And yet they're still equal. It seems like sometimes when you have to have certificates, a lot of times there's a little bonus or whatever you want to call it. That's not necessary for this. This is still able, because I'm also thinking of somebody who wants to apply for like maybe a lateral, well, they can't do it because they don't have the certificate. So then they got to go back and get that training. So I'm just questioning, if that's been an issue or could it be an issue for, making sure things are equal across the board.
I believe in most for therapeutics and aquatics, we give them a certain amount of time to get their certificates. There are with aquatics, usually someone that's going to go into that position is going to have climbed the ladder through it. I mean, but I hear what you're saying. Our other coordinators usually do come to the table with more degrees or certificates type of a thing, but it's not necessarily required for aquatics. There are things that are required. So
but
that might be something that the class and comp looks into that also at that point, but they're definitely currently doing the minimum of a coordinator position.
Okay.
So,
but in either therapeutics or aquatics, if an individual were to apply, they have time to get all this after the fact. That makes sense then. Okay. All right. Let me get back to
help pay for that and help get people to their certificate.
Very good. Okay.
So yeah.
All right. And I'm just going through my packet here, so I'm kind of skipping back and forth. underneath the open space technician, I see that part of the responsibilities is the application of pesticides and herbicides, but I don't see a certificate required for that. So is this like a lower level of application? They don't need an applicator's certificate or anything like that?
Correct. So the supervisor, whether that's assisting from grounds or a crew leader, would be holding that certificate, or a pesticide personnel. And so it would be training, but they wouldn't be doing the higher level type of work for that.
Okay, because I know we do have people like that on staff. So
Correct.
They would be overseeing it then.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. That makes sense. And let's see. Okay, on the org chart, page 92, Recreation Community Services. I was looking across that line where all of the recreation coordinators are listed, and I noticed there's one position called Teen Services Coordinator. Just questioning why that one has a special title when all the rest are the same title.
So many years when I started, some of our coordinators had different titles, like the teen center supervisor had a different title. So we didn't just call them a supervisor. So now the way we've orged everything and the way everyone's being classified and paid is all as a supervisor or a coordinator. But the teen center had a little different name for a while. And so that same like with the pool, and that's why I'm sorry I got confused, but D used to have a different title. Her title was different and there was a different job description, but it was the same as a supervisor job description. So we moved her a while ago to just a supervisor because she was in the same pay scale. So, and that's kind of what it is. So it's the same pay scale, same grade and everything. And the job is the same. It's just when it was invented, they gave it a different name.
So just historical then. Okay.
Yeah, so we're trying to get everybody to more similar. So it says supervisor, I'm not looking at it right now, but it does say supervisor in the title now, correct? Thousand Oaks, Teen Center, see in this one, yeah, Teen Center's director. So yeah, but it's the same as the supervisor.
Okay. And then also I noticed a reservations coordinator position. However, that's at a different pay range.
It is a different position. It is a different grade level actually, because they do not currently supervise anybody. So it is a very different job description than what we consider a coordinator. So we actually looked at that when we were doing this because we thought that person would, that position would also move into a coordinator position, but there were just too many differences and their job is really different. So we believe in the comp and study that's going to come out and that would probably potentially get changed, or we'll name it something different so that it's more clear.
Okay. And then the last thing I had was I noticed on your org chart a teen services coordinator, but I didn't see that on your pay scale.
It's a coordinator.
So even though that one says teen service coordinator, it's just a recreation coordinator. Okay.
They just happen to work at the teen center.
All right.
So yes.
So it's not just me.
Hence us wanting to clean these up.
Trying to clean it up.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other? Yes, Director Cussworth.
So I just had really just one question. So I noticed that your open space technician is keeping his same name as open space technician. He's just getting a raise, basically, right? So what is the difference? This goes a little bit with what Director, I forgot your name. Nichols. What Director Nichols was saying. Is this something that this person wants to aspire to be a ranger? And what makes the difference between the technician and a ranger? Does he have to have a certain education level, or is that something where somebody normally is going to be moving up to become a ranger, or is this person kind of just wanting to stay there? I'm just wondering what's the difference in the jobs. It probably lists it in the qualifications, but I didn't read it.
Yeah, so as Melissa said, the open space technician is very similar to a grounds worker one, but just in open space. So not to say that that individual can't, gain ability and training and stuff to move up to ranger, but that is an open space technician that's very similar to a grounds worker one level. So from a park versus open space.
So I'm also
that's the
thinking though
role.
that when I was reading what that person does, don't rangers do a lot of that? Obviously, just one person can't be managing all the things that is in all of that open space.
Correct. So there is overlap within classifications, but with the work they do, rangers do different type of work. So.
Okay. Yeah, it would be interesting to know. I found that interesting when I was looking at that. At first, I was wondering, well, where is our open space technician filing in? I really loved, I actually am keeping this because it came in our last one in my park thing now. So I'm trying to get to know where everybody is and what everybody does. But the fact that you included the sheet with circles was actually very nice. And I also want to compliment you on your beautiful presentation. I liked the background shots. I liked how clear it was. And it's very nice to keep board members entertained and happy at board meetings. So thank you. I think that was time well spent.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Just a generic question, because I don't want to get into the weeds. The timing of this recommendation, does it make sense to ask us to pass on these before you have the comp study and review of job classifications, or should it wait until after that's done?
These are the three that we've probably been working on these for 6 months to a year for these people. And the results of the class and comp are probably not going to be for another 6 months. And so for us to have identified these as the best changes to reflect the reality of what they do, that's why we wanted to recommend and move it forward now. And then the one that is changing the range, which is probably the biggest focus of what a class and comp would provide us. We got the prior consultant to opine up with that letter so that it exists, it matches what is in our existing structure. So it can be adjusted if they find something, but we're pretty confident that the class thing that was getting changed with the ranges, we got the blessing from the prior one, and we don't want to hold up these changes for another 6 months or something when it's already been a year in the process.
Okay, understood. I just, a little concerned that do all this and then the comp study comes in and says, no, going to do this, do that.
Yes.
So,
and I would be very shocked because we've all been talking about these descriptions and what their duties are and all of that. So if there was some groundbreaking change in the class and comp, that would be very unexpected.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, we have 3 staff recommendations that we need to act on. Could I get a motion to that effect? Okay, Director Nichols.
Yes, I would move that we accept staff's recommendation to reclassify the 3 positions as stated in the report: open space technician, pool operator, management aquatics, and accounting assistant 2 positions.
Thank you. And we have a second from Director, what's your name? Oh, Cusworth. Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's see.
Thank you, Shelley, for being on. We didn't need you, but thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's see, item 10, reports and announcements. Do we have any questions or comments on recreation highlights, park dedication fees, or Global Senior Center meeting minutes?
I did have a question on that.
Director Cusworth.
Have we ever had board members that have been assigned to go to the Global Center meetings? I mean, we have their minutes in here, but have we ever had that? Has that ever been a position for a board member?
Not that I'm aware of. A board member participates in the commission nominations for their committee,
But
and
that's
it.
Okay.
I mean, you're welcome to attend any time you want.
Okay, so
but
they probably have them during the day now. But
yes,
yeah.
they do.
So, but it would be okay to just attend those if you wanted. I find it interesting.
They're open to the public.
Okay.
And when you're retired and have nothing better to do than go to more meetings, by all means.
I'm a total meeting nerd, I guess. I don't know. I set myself up for, punishment.
Director Lang.
Thank you, Chair Huffer. Again, I enjoyed reading through the recreation highlights. So entertaining, and starting off with that polar bear plunge and seeing that question on that young patron's face and the polar bear, and it's really cute. And it indicated that kids were so much enjoying the event, they stayed in the pool longer than you anticipated. So that's definitely a good sign. And next page 100, report on the Silver Starlight Ball, which we all attended, and it was just almost it's a great event as always. And then I wanted to mention something on page 115 under the Global Senior Center. I don't know, Michelle, if you want to get to that page, or you I don't have that. Well, something else. Why should 115? I'm sorry. Yeah. Because it was supposed to be 112. Under last one, under staff report number 7, talking about the attendance, the number of meetings, and 415 meetings, and then the number of participants, 566 people in attendance. How many months is that covered?
I'm going to have to ask. My guess is 12, but I don't know that for sure. So I'll ask Tim or Patty and get clarification, bring it back at the next meeting.
Any other questions or comments? No, we'll move along then to department reports. And now the new kid on the block.
I do not have a parks report, but I am available for questions.
Okay, do we have any questions for Andrew? No, okay. Recreation Division, Ms. Callis.
I currently do not have a report either. I'm busy taking notes so I can get back to you guys. I know I miss the old days when I could just tell you all the good stuff, and now you've already read it. So they're working hard out there. So winter program registration is on the 9th. So if you want pickleball classes, make sure you're on the phone at 9.
All right, if there are no questions for Ms. Callis, management services, Ms. Smith.
You do get to hear from me a little. We are wrapping up our audit for fiscal year 21-22. And we're also starting the MRCA audit. So we're just in audit land. So send goodies and good thoughts to my accountants. And then the other thing is that we are meeting tomorrow to finalize the questionnaire for all of our employees for the class and comp. So we're chugging along on that. So we'll be reporting you on the status on that as well. So that's all I have, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Smith? No? All right, we'll move along to general manager's report.
We do have the need for closed session, so brace yourself for that. Yeah, so I know. And then really quick, just a few meetings I noticed that I'd had since the last time we met. I did have a chance to meet with Michael Morissette, father of a borderline victim, Christina, and had ongoing conversations about the name statues that are in front of Tarantula Hill and stuff like that. He's still looking for a permanent home, so I offered some ideas that aren't necessarily CRPD involved. So we've got that conversation ongoing. You have your board buddies handout, so gave you that, and so you just read it across the column. So those are your school and park, your school and city board buddies to try to, you know, it's a new year. Just use it as an opportunity to say hello and get a meeting, establish a little relationship. So meet new people, make friends. We had a meeting with the city staff in the planning department. They have to get their housing element done. And one of the things that two things that they really asked us to think hard on, and that we're gonna have to kind of have our master plan look at it too. Right now, our minimum park size is a neighborhood park. They said, hey, we really want you to think about urban parks, the smaller space that's more connected to like apartment buildings and that sort of thing. And then also credit for quasi-public facilities that are maybe not actually dedicated to public use, but are on private property that are quasi-public, like the public's allowed to be there, but it's still owned by the underlying owner, and taking credit for that, i.e. Quimby fees. So those present some pretty big issues for us, both of those things. So they introduced both those ideas, and what they have to get done with the housing element is to get it certified, they have to identify how they are going to provide the needs of those communities. So it wasn't necessarily the city coming to us, it was housing and community development saying, hey, you're going to put all these apartments in commercial zones that used to not have residential. How are you going to provide parks? Like, it was HCD basically saying, what's your plan? So that's an ongoing discussion that's going to have to kind of shake itself out. And then we did have a field trip, and we went down to, was it El Monte? Is that the city? Okay, so we went to El Monte, Whittier Narrows Regional Park, like that. I'd never been there. Oh my Lord, 2,000 acres of developed parkland in one location. Like, that's double all of our parks combined, all of our developed parks combined. It was awesome, man. It was like a park Disneyland. So we went down there specifically to look at the cricket fields, the cricket pitches that they have on. So we were asked to, and we were hoping to see multi-use cricket fields that aren't just dedicated cricket fields, knowing, like, because that's what they're asking to do, is a shared soccer cricket field here. And they weren't. The park guy told us, hey, these are just cricket fields. They're open grass, anyone can run on the turf, but we don't schedule any other sports here. And so the issue is that the setup was basically AstroTurf carpet, like the old school AstroTurf carpet on a bed of concrete, which in the middle of an existing park is probably not a safety, it would raise a safety concern. So we said, we're not really looking to consider doing that unless you can kind of play cricket on, if the cricket pitch needs to be more of the artificial, like football, soccer fields that are at the high schools. You know, it's got to be like an actual spongy, has some sort of fall cushioning to it. So that's where we kind of left it with them. So they're supposed to be exploring whether you can play cricket on a softer surface than concrete, concrete with AstroTurf. So I'm optimistic. They seemed optimistic. So there's a good chance that we might come back with an MOU on that. But we're still waiting to get kind of confirmation that a softer surface would work for them compared to like AstroTurf and concrete, which is not something I want kids playing soccer to run across. So, and that's it. And then we do have a need for closed session.
Director Lang?
Yes, two things. Can you give an example of an urban park is something that already exists that's private but being used by public?
Well, I think it'd be any kind of plaza or open communal space that people, so like, I'm thinking, I don't have a good, yeah, maybe, well, the lakes is actually, yeah, very park-like. I'm thinking more like, it's the Howard Hughes Center at the airport. You ever go, the Howard Hughes Center has a bunch of big, tall buildings. In the middle, it's got this lovely, like, kind of courtyard, some green space, but then it's got like people, playing cornhole, and it's kind of got some of that set up, but it's really for the people in those big buildings that use it. But it, if you decided you want to go park in the parking lot and go play cornhole there, no one would stop you. So it's kind of one of these is it really a park or is it just some private building owners like open area? So it's kind of one of those.
Would it be more applicable to some of the proposed development, Beal Boulevard? Is that what's?
The idea, yeah, the idea is the bigger apartment projects that come along on the boulevard or
the
Like
Kmart
Kmart.
project. My
Kmart.
recollection is on the Kmart project, they classified like a small dog park just for the residents and a couple of green areas, and even the private patios were all included in their quote recreation space.
So would these be like apartment made or gated communities?
No, it would have to be like, we wouldn't consider something that wouldn't be open. It'd have to be open to the public to meet any kind of public park dedication requirement. So the question is to what degree, right? Like, is it going to be subject to this board's decision about hours of operation? I doubt the private property owner would agree to that. You know, there's going to be some issues with that.
Is
So-
the urban park that would, but the urban park is just like in Woodland Hills, they took down an old fire station and they made this really cool fire park. It's right on right by your school, I think, that you teach at. Oh, is it? Yeah, it's like on that side of the south side of the.
Yeah,
building.
it's just anything
But it's,
really
like, small.
Yeah, anything that you kind of can use for public recreation space that's less than 2 acres. I mean, you know, you just have to come up with a definition. We don't have a definition in our master plan of a park less than 2 acres, because what happens is you start losing the ability to do the traditional amenities people want to do, like, you know, basketball or pickleball or a volleyball court or even.
Yeah.
But there are things you can do, and it's like you're kind of catch as catch can is the way I think they start coming on with these bigger projects. And I don't know, I guess maybe we've kind of moved into this new stage where that needs to be something we have to think about, because trying to get 2+ acres next to a Kmart that is $4 million an acre of raw land is hard.
So I had a question, because it seemed to me like you were talking about two things when I mentioned the lakes. One of them is, can we use property like the lakes and the Garden of the World as part of our percentage of, you know, that we need to have so many acres of park per person? So can things like that, which is obviously the lakes as a park area, Gardens of the World could be considered a park, they are open to the public. Would that be considered into our percentage?
I think we account for those as amenities that the community has access to. I don't know that we actually give them credit as acreage in our master plan, but I think we do have an appendix or something where we talk about private, you know, recreational opportunities. It's like the field house used to be listed in the old master plan. Remember the field house?
I think that was
long
before my
timers.
time. How long ago?
Used to
was
be
the
an
field
ice
house?
skating rink and indoor
there-
tennis courts.
Depot?
Yeah.
That goes way back.
Not Home Depot, where Home Depot used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Home Depot. Okay.
Yeah, so the early master plan considered that part of a recreation amenity, but since it's not public, wasn't dedicated to the public, when the private sector says, I want to do something different, it's gone.
Mhm.
So that's why I am very reluctant to want to give a private property owner credit for doing a public thing when there isn't the guarantee that it's going to stay public.
Yeah, there's
'cause-
no
But
control.
what was this ruling you were talking about? I mean, what was the whole basis of that? Just like refresh my memory. What did you say in the
The
beginning?
city is trying to get its housing element certified, and they have to submit some stuff to the state that says they have a plan on how they're going to serve the future density.
Okay, so this is just our city. This isn't anything that's by the state saying we have to count those things. The city is.
No, this is the city trying to get a housing
So
element
the
that
city would
qualifies.
be saying, I'm just trying to clarify. So the city would be saying things like the lakes and the Gardens of the World are counting for parks.
They'll probably do that, and and what they want to also say is in the future, when these future ones come on, we have a plan for urban parks,
They want our input.
and somebody's going to have to manage urban parks, like parks that aren't traditionally a neighborhood park or bigger.
Because I remember back when I did that whole reading of the master plan back in the 60s, they had what they called pocket parks, but then they made an absolute ruling that they didn't want those because they were taking too much maintenance for what they felt they were worth. So they're saying they want to bring those up, but we still don't have a lot of land to even do a pocket park.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, because there was a pocket park on the master plan that was at the end of my street. Well, now those are houses.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's the two ways that would happen would be a big developer has enough land to actually designate a bit of that land as a park. So 500 Teal Boulevard, which is the Houghton Camp and Teal Boulevard property. We were pitched on, hey, we want to give you half an acre. We're going to develop the other 5.5 acres. So are we good? Is that our park? We count that. So that's a negotiation and a discussion that's happening.
Would they be maintaining that, or would we be maintaining?
That's all up in the air.
Because a lot of apartment complexes do have, you know, public areas and pools and things of that sort where they're, and little swing sets and things like that. Would that now be considered parks? Is that what the city's gonna say? Or
That's what the developer would like to have.
Yeah, so the developer wants to take what is otherwise it's traditionally private amenity offered and
Get
you
credit
know,
for it.
and trying to push it into the
So that
public
they
realm,
don't
but
get
yet
some of
keep the
these-
land or keep the ability to do something.
Residential around there, that would even benefit them. Right
Well,
there.
299 is right across the street now. All those new apartments.
The tarantula.
Yeah.
there's no room for a park there.
So
Walk down.
They're smashed there.
Yeah.
Make sure.
What, that's 110 units.
Anyway, so that's
Is there a,
that's up.
is there a time frame that they're looking for our input?
I think
response,
they're,
whatever?
well, I think they took, I think they have to say that they have a plan to get their housing element certified. So I think that, I don't know what their deadline was, but I got the impression is they needed to check a box and their plan is urban parks, whether we do them or they figure out a different way to do them, they're
Okay.
doing
All right.
them. You know,
Because basically, my understanding is the housing element, first of all, it's at the state level, the state says you have to have a housing element, and the housing element has to include A, B, C, and D.
Correct.
One of the things that's required is that there is open space,
Mhm.
however that's defined.
Mhm.
right. Anyway, it's all that stuff that seemed to be really like right there in our face when the general plan update that sort of kind of got really quiet and haven't heard a thing. Now all of a sudden it was really important because of the housing element, but we'll see. It's something we got to just keep working with the city to come up with. So pocket parks are something that we're going to have to address, and you know, we'll have our strategic plan or our board retreat strategic plan, and you know how that fits in our master plan, all that stuff. So.
And I think it's good that the city wants us involved.
Yeah.
This definitely falls under our umbrella.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you happen to ask them the status of their master plan so we could finish our master plan?
The housing element is going ahead of the land use and the rest of the general plan because I think they have a deadline on the housing element for the state. Yeah.
No surprise. All right. Thank you for the update.
Anything else, Mr. Friedel?
No, that's it.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Friedel? No. All right. Director's reports. Are you?
Sorry, I had a. Yes.
Well, I saw your waving hand first, so
Yeah,
I'm ignoring this side for the moment. So Director Lang.
Okay. Those, I think at our last meeting, know that when we had a presentation about Conejo Valley Days, I mentioned that, you know, I had become actually the last Grand Marshal of Conejo Valley Days. And the reason I brought this was because on the name tag, you'll see what my name was. And I think a couple of you might remember it. But I would like for you to take a look at what my name was as a Grand Marshal and make a comment.
Yeehaw. I remember you explained that because some years ago you came dressed as the marshal.
Grand Marshal. So
Yeah, Grand Marshal. Yeah.
But as those who have been involved in our community for many years know that our Grand Marshals were always country western, like Buffalo Bob or El Camino Don, etc. It was all the country western. I was even though I was the very last Grand Marshal. That's okay. I was the very first Grand Marshal to take on a Native American name. So, and previously, as Nellie knew, there were a couple other Native Americans who ran the Chumash Indian Museum and who I worked with a lot in various events over there. I asked them to select a name for me. And this is the name they came up with. Does anybody know what this means in Chumash?
Friend.
Right. So they selected, I said, I don't want any input, you choose. And they selected Shiantut, which is defined as friends. So anyway, that's what prompted me to bring this, because one, I knew Nellie would, pick up on the fact that I took on a Native American name, and I happened to be the last Grand Marshal of Canyon Valley. Okay, so that's that. As Melissa Smith knows, I've had a number of MRCA meetings, and you may know over the years that we are responsible for millions of dollars in grants and so forth. And we've had so many this last month of December, the end of the year, and so forth, and so forth. I've had to come, we normally mail them to you, 2 or 3, maybe 5 grants that you have to be responsible for. This month of December, at one time, there's 14 grants I had to go over and sign, and next time there was like 10, and so forth. And the total, those 2 signing events up was, I forget, I'm trying to remember, close to 180 million or something like that worth of grants that the MRC is responsible for. And that's pretty impressive. We didn't realize what has taken place. And I shared with you, I believe, I shared with you.
Send out an email.
Yeah. And we just closed on a big one. So it's very important what we as a board do, supporting me and enabling me to participate in the MRCA at this level as chair. And as Melissa knows, I just re-elected chair Wednesday of this week, yesterday. Very good. So CRP very important in the MRCA and Southern California, LA and Ventura County District open space. So be proud of yourselves. Mm-hmm. And then I went to 16 meetings this month, and those grant signing, 5 of them, and we had a special MRCA meeting at 4 or 5 because of MRCA involved. So anyway, I'm keeping busy and keeping off the streets. Just glad that I can represent CRP. That concludes my report.
And it's nice to always be able to sign away someone else's money. So
yeah, it would be mine, I'll say that.
Yes. Director Buss, since I'm looking that direction.
Oh, are we doing a report?
Yeah.
Yes.
So since the last meeting, I went to the Starlight Gala, and that was really fun. It was awesome. My husband and I had a great time. And then I enjoyed the holidays with my kids in this rain.
The holidays were cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Director Nichols.
I don't have any activities to report since our last board meeting. Everything was the first half.
Yeah.
I went to the Starlight Bowl also, and that's all.
All right, and I'm pretty much same. Everything was the first half of December. I did spend a little over 2 weeks investigating all of the recreational facilities and parks in Oahu, and I plan to continue my investigation in years coming. So, all right. Item 12, request for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Does anyone have anything? I don't see anything. All right. Items from the public. Do we have any public standing by? Okay, excellent. Oh, I don't guess we can skip over 14, huh?
No, we do have
No.
a need for closed session. So we have a need for closed session, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. It's an approximately 10,000 square foot portion of Page Lane Neighborhood Park, 901 Page Lane. Agency negotiators Jim Friedel, Andrew Mooney, and Mark Sellers Esquire. Purpose of the closed session is to discuss possible disposition of the property.
Okay, and
No
are we expecting?
No announcement.
No announcements at the end. So in that case, I can go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
All right, then our meeting is adjourned.
To close session.
To close session.